Hello, my name is Vielka Almazar. I'm the CEO of the Insight Clinic, a practicing bilingual psychotherapist, and I've had the privilege of supporting about 4,000 clients here at the clinic, navigating trauma, anxiety, and lots of emotional overwhelm. After all of those sessions, something became very clear to me. The people who regulate their anxiety the fastest do not rely on what happens inside of the therapy room. They build small, consistent habits outside of it. Habits that train the nervous system to return to safety over and over and over again. And I want to say this clearly because it's important. If you struggle with anxiety or trauma responses, it is not because you're weak. It's usually because your nervous system hasn't been trained yet. Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 micro habits that you can practice at home. Habits to take anywhere from 5 seconds to 2 minutes, but when practiced consistently, they can significantly reduce the anxiety spirals and help your body feel safe again. These are tools that we regularly use in therapy, but the real transformation happens when you practice them in your daily life. Number 1, setting an actionable intention instead of fighting anxiety. 2, a 60-second safety scan that grounds the brain. 3, a breathing technique that shifts your nervous system quickly. 4, naming emotions to reduce their intensity. A physical reset that releases tension stored in the body. How to create a sensory and safety anchor. A tiny mindset shift that rewires the brain's negativity bias. A boundary habit that helps prevent anxiety spirals. A 2-minute ritual that signals safety before sleep. None of these require special equipment. None of them require an hour of meditation. They simply require small, repeatable actions that gradually retrain your nervous system. Habit number 1, set an actionable intention. Many people approach anxiety with a goal that sounds like this: I just don't want to feel anxious today. But there's a problem with that approach. The brain doesn't respond well to avoidance-based goals. When you tell yourself, don't panic, the brain actually becomes more alert to the possibility of panic. Instead of avoidance, we use actionable intentions. An actionable intention sounds like this: if I notice tension rising, I will take 3 slow breaths before responding. Or, if I start overthinking tonight, I will write my thoughts down instead of replaying them in my head. Notice the difference. You're not trying to eliminate anxiety. You're creating a clear response for when it appears. That small shift gives the brain something powerful, a sense of control, something a lot of us crave. And when the nervous system feels a sense of control, it naturally reduces the intensity of the stress response. Think of actionable intentions as pre-programming your responses before stress appears. Habit number 2, orient to safety. This next micro habit comes directly from trauma therapy. It's called orienting. When anxiety spikes, your brain temporarily acts as if danger is present, even when you're actually safe. Orienting helps the brain update that information. Here's how it works. Pause and slowly look around your environment. Then identify 3 things you can see, 2 things you can hear, 1 thing you can physically feel. For example, you might notice the color of the wall, the shape of a chair, the light coming through a window. You might hear a fan, distant traffic, or someone walking nearby. You might feel your feet touching the ground or the floor, your hands on your lap. What you're doing is bringing your brain into the present moment, because anxiety pulls us into the future, or depression pulls us back into the past. That simple practice tells your nervous system this: I am here and I am safe right now. And because the nervous system processes sensory information very quickly, this simple scan can reduce anxiety within seconds. Habit number 3, the 1-degree breath reset. Breathing is one of the fastest ways to influence the nervous system. But the key is how you breathe. Many people try to calm down by taking large, quick breaths. Unfortunately, that will actually make your anxiety worse. Instead, try this. Inhale slowly for 4 counts, hold for 1, and exhale for 6 counts. The longer exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's natural calming system. Even 1 or 2 breath cycles can shift your state slightly. Think of it as adjusting a dial. You're not going from 10 to 0, but you're going to go from 10 to 9 and then 8, and slowly that way you'll start to feel more calm. But don't skip the 1 second hold, because that actually gives your brain the chance to grab some more oxygen from your breathing. Habit number 4, name the emotion to tame it. When emotions become overwhelming, the brain's threat center, the amygdala, becomes highly active. One surprisingly effective strategy is simply naming the emotion you're experiencing. This is called affect labeling in neuroscience. You might say internally, I notice that I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I notice anxiety rising. Something interesting happens when you do this. The brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reason and regulation, becomes more active. You suddenly invite it to the party. And the amygdala becomes less reactive. In other words, naming the emotion helps regulate it. A helpful tip is to say, I notice I feel, rather than I am blank. I notice anxiety creates a distance from the feeling, where I'm anxious can make you feel like the emotion is your entire identity in that moment. Language shifts can make a significant difference. Habit number 5. The 5-second movement release. Anxiety and trauma are not just mental experiences, they are physical experiences stored in your nervous system. When your body detects stress, it prepares for action. Tightening muscles, increasing your heart rate, releasing adrenaline. If that energy doesn't discharge, tension can remain in your muscles. A quick way to release this is like a micro movement. Shake your hands for 5 seconds, roll your shoulders slowly, stretch your arms overhead, stand up, move your legs. These movements signals the nervous system that the stress response can complete and release. Animals naturally do this after a threat passes. Humans often suppress the urge to move, specifically and especially if we're in a social environment. But even 5 seconds of movement can help reset your physical state. Don't underestimate it. Habit number 6. Create a sensory safety anchor. Your brain links sensory experiences with emotional states, so you can intentionally create a calm association. Over time, it can help the nervous system shift into regulation much more quickly. Your anchor could be something simple, like a calming scent, a soft piece of fabric, or a warm cup of tea. A smooth stone that you hold in your hand, a fidget toy that you really like. The key here is repetition. Use the anchor when you are already calm. Pair it with slow breathing or relaxing movements. Eventually, your brain begins linking the sensory cue of the object with safety. Then when anxiety appears, the anchor can act as a shortcut back to calm. It's a small habit, but over time it becomes surprisingly powerful. Habit number 7. Notice one good enough moment. The human brain has something called a negativity bias. It naturally scans for problems, threats, and mistakes. This helped our ancestors survive, but it can make modern life actually pretty dreadful. One way to counteract this bias is by intentionally noticing a good enough moment each day. Not something extraordinary, it could just be something small. Maybe a pleasant conversation, finishing a task and noticing the satisfaction, a moment of quiet, a short walk outside, and if possible, write it down. Research shows us that physically recording positive moments help the brain process them more deeply. Over time, this practice helps the brain recognize that not every moment is dangerous or overwhelming. Habit number 8. Boundary before the spiral. Many anxiety spirals begin with predictable triggers. Maybe it's a certain conversation environment, a tone of voice that somebody might use, or a demand that is placed on your time. Most people wait until there's a conflict or they're overwhelmed to set a boundary, but by then it's much harder. Instead of waiting until the situation becomes intense, try setting a micro boundary ahead of time. So you might prepare a simple script and tell people ahead of any conversation, I'm going to need a moment to think about this and maybe I can't really respond right now. Or let me get back to you later. You might also create physical boundaries, such as stepping outside briefly during an overwhelming situation or taking a step back from a situation entirely. Boundaries are not just relationship tools, they are emotional regulation tools, nervous system tools. They prevent the escalation of emotion before it gets to a place where your body can't really handle it. Habit number 9, the 2-minute wind down ritual. This final micro habit focuses on the end of the day. Your nervous system benefits from consistent signals that it's time to shift into rest. A simple 2-minute ritual can help. For example, dim the lights, take 3 slow breaths, reflect briefly on one positive or neutral moment of the day. Consistency is more important than length. You do not need a 30-minute routine for this. You just need repeated signals of safety and closure. Over time, your body begins to recognize that as a pattern and will relax much more easily at night. None of these habits require an hour. Most take less than a minute, but when you practice them regularly, they train your nervous system to move out of survival mode and back into regulation. Self-regulation is not a personality trait. It isn't something you're born with. It is a skill, something you build. And like any skill, it improves through small, repeated practice. These 9 micro habits are simply daily reps for your nervous system. If one of these habits stood out to you, try practicing it this week and notice changes. And if you found this helpful, consider subscribing. I share practical mental health tools just like this regularly. If you're interested in working more deeply on anxiety or trauma with a professional, you can learn more about the Insight Clinic through the link in the description. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.